Hello, I'm Riker, aka Karma X. Joining me is the ever Scottish co-host Dex, and you're watching one of the top Eve talk shows to air every other Sunday at around 2100 Eve time. It's time for Between Two Keepstars. This week we're joined by Rixx, Javix, and Phanomite. Both are currently running for CSM, and I recommend you check out their forums on their posts on the Eve forums. So, welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Great to
So
be
to,
here.
get things started off, Rixx, Phanomite, you guys want to tell us a little bit about yourselves?
You go ahead, Rix.
Okay, I'll start. My name is Rixx Javix. I've been an Eve player for 13 years now, and for the last 8 years, I've been the CEO of Stay Frosty, independent low-sec corporation known for piracy and YAR and having a good time. And I'm also the alliance executor of a Band Apart Alliance, well known for participating in alliance tournaments and defeating some of the bigger names, but also losing a lot and hosting player events like our recent one on March the 6th, which when we held at FFA, we had 12,000 plus ship explosions, which set a record for low sec in a single day, which is pretty cool. So that's who I am. And so turn it over to Phantomite to talk about himself.
Hi, I'm Phantomite. A lot of people will know me from last year after I asked CCP some difficult questions in person at Eve London. I represent huge variety of different types of combat in low sec, although I typically regard myself as a person who is fighting for the health of combat across the entire game. And I have been playing for 1 year longer than Rix, which means that I could beat him in a fight.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how it works.
Absolutely. I mean, how skill points works, that could be how it does.
I'm sure we've both got our specs to 5, so there's not really much wiggle room there.
No. No, after 250, I don't know what it is now, 254 million skill points, there's not a lot left to train to begin with.
Um, well, as we were saying before we come on here, a big congratulations to you guys. Obviously, considering the amount of people that were that put their name forward, I wouldn't imagine it was the anxiety must have been difficult to handle. I would imagine.
What for like being anxious as to whether we would be accepted or not?
Yeah.
Well,
To
quite frankly, a number of the people who didn't make it are somewhat surprised that
Yep.
they didn't make it, and so I mean, I never had the concern that I wouldn't be accepted, but had I known that there was so many people were going to not make it in for reasons that they're not entirely certain about, or at the very least for reasons that they're not revealing to people, then yeah, I probably would have been more nervous.
If you'd have known more, you might have been more nervous. I agree.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't nervous at all. I think that there have been moments in the past where I probably would have may have been nervous, but not this year.
is
Let's hear.
is this your first time, Rex? Or like in general, or have you ran for it before?
I've never run before. This is the first time that I've personally run. I've helped people with their campaigns in the past. Worked with Rockweiler. I worked with the judge before he turned on everyone. I worked with other people in their campaigns in the past that I believed would make good CSM candidates, but this is my first time running.
Well, that's going to be one of our topics, but I guess it's going to be pushed to the front of the list. So for everyone who's not in the know, CCP just recently published the official candidate list. There were 47 total candidates that they announced. What had happened was there were a number of CSM candidates that actually didn't get selected and weren't allowed to run, which really it made a lot of people angry. They're actually on yesterday's Meta show. Matani was talking about it, and the way he worded it was, "You've got all these people who are willing to go and put their image and their credibility on the line to go and run for CSM, and they do all this stuff. They make a post on the forums. They put themselves out there, only to learn that, hey, you can't actually run, which is honestly like I, it definitely has its problems. Like, I don't think there's really any way to explain it because you've got people essentially risking embarrassment at a chance to maybe maybe be able to run for CSM. Personally, I think that it should really be a thing of, hey, is there a way, like, people should be able to check with CCP beforehand if they can run, because if so, they could end up in a situation where, congratulations, they just embarrassed themselves for nothing.
I
I
I
will I will
oh, go
say that
ahead. Go ahead.
that is a suggestion that has since now been made by a couple of members of the current CSM. They have
Right.
suggested that, hey, perhaps people need to be able to apply first, and then they'll know whether they can crack on or not after that.
Right. There are a lot of systems in the real world where you pre-qualify for something, you pre-qualify for a home mortgage, you pre-qualify for things. I don't see a problem with having some sort of system that allows us to pre-qualify for CSM in private before we make it public that we're running. It's an unfortunate thing that happened. I agree.
Oh yeah, because especially because like CSM isn't one of those things where, well, from my knowledge, you're putting in time and effort. You know, from what I know, CSM is a lot of work, and you're putting in all this time and effort to help CCP make a better game. Like the least you could do as a company is say, hey, listen, uh, you probably shouldn't make a post and go out there because you wouldn't be able to run anyway. Like, I feel like that's a small ask for, someone who is willing to put in all this time and effort to try to help you do your job better.
Agreed to a certain point. I think that, CSM candidacy elections, there hasn't been a lot of effort put into that yet. I mean, for different various things. I mean, you're just writing a forum post. There are certain qualification things that you have to meet, but if they had, if Phanomite, for example, he was on CSM last year, so he was
Hmm.
pretty certain that he was going to make it again, unless he did something in
I mean, it
Reykjavik.
would be it would be a bit weird if something from my past prevented me for a second year, but
Right,
hadn't prevented me
right.
from my
For the
first.
first year, that would be weird,
Yeah.
especially since we were on lockdown most of last year. It would have taken a lot of effort on your part, I think.
Yeah, what badness can you get up to from your own home? Oh wait.
Let's not go there. But yeah, no, I think it's unfortunate. I do think some sort of pre-qualification is probably called for.
I mean, basically, it's very simple. I think we're all in agreement that just flipping around the qualification and the campaigning would is the solution. But here's the thing, right? CCP, I've posted the link in Twitch chat. CCP has written that after the candidate announcement is the campaign period. But
Right.
obviously, we've been doing this for weeks ahead of time. We've been doing this for weeks ahead of time. So if if people were going to wait for qualification, I mean, well, quite frankly, people could have waited for qualification before
Yes.
campaigning, but by the very nature of the fact that there's nothing stopping us from getting out there ahead of time, there is no time that CCP can start the qualification ahead of time and then have people wait to campaign afterwards.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
That's a
that's the
problem too.
difficulty. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I imagine myself in that position if I had been sitting here last Thursday watching the live stream of the announcement, and for whatever reason my name hadn't been mentioned. That would be rather embarrassing at that point because, as you said, I've been doing this for almost a month at that point. I've been on various shows, streams, Twitch channels, podcasts. I've been in alliance TSs talking to alliances about my candidacy, and all of a sudden to not make it, that would be rather devastating, honestly.
Yeah, it's it's a difficult thing because obviously, essentially, like, does it not have a certain like political campaigning feel about it? So how, like, obviously, if you have a look at it from the real world perspective, obviously there are, like, if you look at the US political system, there's obviously there's campaigning and stuff like that, and like there's a lot of dropouts that spend a ridiculous amount of time. Do you think that they would be embarrassed by that as well? That having
Sure.
to drop out purely because
Yeah.
the
Yeah, but that's what they all know, that it's a mature system. They sign up for it knowing that these are this is the roll of the dice you could get.
yeah that
Right. Well, if you
can
think,
anticipate being humiliated.
well, if you think about it, there have been candidates who have put themselves forward in a public forum, and I don't know for what reason they just pretend like they didn't do what it was they did when they were 18 or 23. They know for sure it's going to come back to haunt them. And
Mhm.
you know, I don't know that this is similar. I don't know any of the reasons why people weren't involved, and I don't really want to know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this isn't the CSM. Like I've said before, it's like a political campaign in many respects, but it's also not like a political campaign. For example, you know, I don't consider myself running against anyone. I consider myself running for something, right? So I'm not. I mean, even though there's 47 candidates, there's going to be nothing coming out of this camp, and I'm sure Phanomite would agree, that's going to be against any other candidate. It's you know, here's our platform, here's what we believe, here's who I am, and you know, I'd
Well,
like, you know, I mean, you're not gonna. It's not really mudslinging, is what I'm getting at.
it's not mudslinging, but there are definitely people who have views that do not that fight with each other. I mean, if we look at an extreme, most obvious version of something this year,
Right.
we have Isaac, who unfortunately did not make it through the qualification to be a candidate, who is specifically he was running as a gate camper. And
That's
we
true. That is
also
true.
have Ron USMC, who is running specifically against gate camping,
Right.
right?
Right.
So we
Right.
do have some incompatible um, viewpoints.
Worldviews. Right. No, that's a good point. That's a very good point. It does happen. But these are people that, you know, you're going to get, if you are elected, you're going to have to work with. So, you know, you don't want to spend a lot of time being negative about them and then expecting them to work with you once you get on to CSM, if you're that fortunate, of course.
We shall see, won't we?
I'll shut up.
So
Oh.
so making it with trying to avoid, but with risk of making it sound like a gossip channel, was there any candidates that you were surprised didn't make it?
Orin,
Yeah, Orin.
absolutely Orin.
Yeah, same here.
You know, I've been talking a lot with Isaac as well, and you know, obviously I don't know why he wasn't allowed in, and you know, him and me were having some great conversations, and boom, he's gone.
All right.
Yep.
But
Okay.
and then there's Orin, who has done nothing in this campaign aside from thought out, calm, intelligent discussion about EVE Online, and boom, he's out as well for reasons that none of us will ever know.
Right.
Huh.
Yep.
What
Yeah,
like
and Squishy is a very popular Twitch streamer. That's really all I know about him. But, I mean, so I don't know that much about Squishy, but you know, for me, those were surprises. But definitely Orin.
I think Squishy was doing himself a disservice by positioning himself as a meme candidate, because what he was doing when I was talking with him on a show and things like that is he would start memeing and making jokes and then finish off the thing he was speaking about by saying something incredibly sensible and mature and deeply understanding of the mechanic that we were talking about. And he should. I mean, I know he didn't make it, so it's a moot point. But I think that he was doing himself a disservice by implying that he was a joke. You know.
And perhaps perhaps you know, that'll be a lesson for next year. So if he decides to run again.
Well, I
could
mean, if he got
you
denied this year, I'm guessing that he would get denied last year. And you know, maybe this is just my assumption because he hasn't been streaming EVE Online. I guess that he's done. I guess he's done with EVE. But you know,
Ouch. That's
could
a
you
shame.
big ouch.
could you enlighten us as to the how you achieve candidacy. What are what is the kind of process?
Sure.
What are the requirements you
There's
need to
a
meet?
there's a very simple web form that you fill in, um, and the public-facing part that you can see says you've got to be 18 years or older, or you must be the legal adult age in your home country, where at the age, or if your country requires that you be older, you've got to be older to be able to do that thing, and you've got to have a history of honouring the EULA and code of conduct for playing EVE Online. That's
Yep.
basically all it says.
Yep. And then you have to make a forum post.
And you have to make a forum post that fills out a few basic things that they write down.
All right. Okay. That's interesting. Oh, there you go. That answers perhaps some of the questions that our chat might have.
Then you've got to send them a scan of your passport as well. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
One of the things I was a little bit disappointed with there was so there was a little slot where you could fill out a video, and I ended up spending like a good 10, 15 hours trying to make a really cool campaign video, thinking, all right, well, I'm gonna send it to CCP and they might put it on my little candidate thing. And so I did that, sent it in, and when I went and saw my candidate thing, I was like, oh wow, there's no mention of the video that I made anywhere. So it was kind of like, all right, well,
You can slap it in the middle of your post on Evo, can't you? Though.
that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, of course. So obviously we've covered Phantomite. You've been a victim of this podcast a couple of times. But Rixx, obviously your overemphasis on your dislike for mining as well, which I very much enjoyed. but Rixx,
Yeah.
a subject I haven't covered with you is so obviously you like all the CSM guys have a certain scope or like what they want to change. And I know we've been working together on a different thing, but forget that exists right now. What would you be campaigning for? What is your aim? What would you like to see changed in EVE?
Yeah, I like to think of it as what is my advocacy going to be focused on? Because CSM, yeah, there's a lot there. Most of the CSM is about other things, but yet I think every candidate should have something that they're advocating for. And while I'm advocating for a spectrum of things, my advocacy focus definitely is going to be on faction all, as I was told yesterday. I've been calling it faction warfare, and somebody corrected me. But faction warfare for sure, absolutely. I think it's the heartbeat of LowSec, and I think that it definitely needs some attention. And not that there might not be things already in planning stages that might be addressing some issues that are plaguing it. I think that it's a shame that it's gone on for that long, and not that it hasn't been iterated on. It has in various stages. One of which I personally advocated for at FanFest in 2017, which was Warp Core stabs being banned from entering Plex, and that was something that we got into the game. But I think faction warfare definitely needs a good hard look and addressed. As a matter of fact, just yesterday or Friday, I released just a general roadmap for some of those changes that I'd be advocating for, or at least thought starters for what could be addressed or discussed or debated with CCP regarding those changes. So, kind of proud of that. But yeah, I mean, and then I think there's little stuff too that I would like to advocate for and see where their heads are at. Like I talk a lot about the UI. I've been we just went through this thing where Project Discovery won a Webby Award, and that's fantastic. And Project Discovery was amazing. I mean, the environment that was created, the graphics that were used, the UI that was used for that, just stunning. I mean, absolutely top of the line. Why hasn't main UI been driven to that direction? We're looking at the screen. However long you play, you're looking at it for a long time, and it's fundamentally the same as it's ever been. And again, that gives us some comfort as players. And I'm not advocating for drastic changes, but I think that user experience, new players coming into the game, Eve is 18 years old. It's time for it to join the modern age and keep up to date and not get left behind. And I think a lot can be done as far as UI design to do that and to welcome new players into the game, which we've seen some of with 3D Aura and some of the other things that have been added recently, which is great. But I think there's still a lot of room
Well,
for
to
growth
be
there.
fair, I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how much 3D Aura actually improves
Right.
immersion in the game, to be
Exactly.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. It'd be interesting to see some data on, how much that's actually being, used.
So one thing I will say about faction warfare is that I totally agree that faction warfare does need some work. I actually tried it roughly a few years ago, and I didn't really like. So I put my character into faction warfare, thinking, all right, maybe I'll get some sort of tutorial. All I know is that I have to warp to these sites and shoot the rats. So I go to these,
Right. Right.
I shoot the rat, and I'm thinking, all right, supposedly there's supposed to be a payout. But I waited there, shot another rat, kept shooting rats, and there was still no payout. Because I was doing it because I was like, okay, faction warfare is a good way to make money. But here I am shooting these rats. Because keep in mind, my experience is missions and ratting and nullsec. It's you get a payout every 15 minutes, and so that's what I was expecting.
Right. When's
But
my
that
wallet?
didn't
When's my
happen.
wallet gonna blink?
Yeah, and that didn't happen. So I went and I searched the internet to try to figure out, okay, how does the payment thing work for faction warfare? And there was absolutely nothing.
Right.
Mm.
So, yeah, for anybody not aware in the chat, it's largely an LP. That's where the value is.
Right. Your wallet does not blink.
You guys are on your own in terms of low six stuff. I have a very limited understanding of it. Apart from the fact that you get to, I know there's like two different militia, and you shoot each other in terms of faction warfare. That's it. That's literally all I know in terms of like the plexes and all that other stuff. I've no
As an
idea.
outsider, what questions might you ask us about it? What aspects would you want clearing up?
No, that's the big question. I really suppose, isn't it? Well, I suppose. Well, obviously, before we come on, I mentioned Corvus. Obviously, he's unavailable. He might be able to make it later. His work schedule is kind of a bit extreme. But I have noticed he has a very passionate opinion on it, and very much for very good reasons. He has an extensive and detailed document indicating what kind of changes he would make. But
hmm
what, why is like obviously like these kind of passionate responses indicate that you guys believe it is very broken. Could you kind of emphasize on that? That would be the question I would have.
I wouldn't use the phrase extremely broken, but I
Mhm.
would assign it the same severity. The problem is that the game has, how old is faction warfare now? Over 10 years?
It's
Uh,
about
the
10, yeah.
yeah, the problem is that faction warfare has not evolved in any noticeable way in the 10 years that the rest of EVE Online has changed around it. And that makes it utterly abysmal in terms of mechanics, fun, opportunities, and content generation.
Exactly. Most players of faction warfare feel, and I think justifiably, that this is yet another example of CCP introducing a system and then abandoning it. And they feel abandoned.
I think that something that faction warfare could really do with is, so here's something that EVE Online already has that for some reason hasn't been integrated into faction warfare, is EVE Online has these diamond rat mining fleets that can
Right.
bring coherent fleets of NPC craft
Absolutely.
that requires a coherent fleet of capsuleers if you want to fight them. Right now, there's basically no reason to fight those fleets at all. And here we have faction warfare, which is supposed to be you fighting for your side
Right.
and let's face it, as great as it is that faction warfare is where frigate PvP thrives, faction warfare should also have much more push and pull on people to do fleet content of varying sizes as well.
Right.
We have diamond NPCs. We have competent, interesting NPC fleet AI in this game, and faction warfare integrates absolutely none of it.
Yeah, the very bottom of my roadmap is which I consider the linchpin, is the the introduction of NPC AI into it. I mean, I was having a conversation just last week, which is part of what went into this roadmap, with several prominent faction warfare players, and this came up, and we spent a good half hour just snowballing and whiteboarding, ways in which NPC fleets could impact the play style and impact the field in an interesting ways too. Could players join in on their own factions NPC fleets and be an integral part of achieving some goals against other faction NPC fleets? Could you organize with the AI? Could you?
That's a great concept, because
Yeah,
imagine if there were faction warfare missions that
right.
said right, take a remote rep ship. There is a NPC fleet fight going down here. Go here and rep your allies
Yeah,
from the Imperial Navy. And
right.
what if some of the missions said, right, we need 5 guys in DPS. We'll rep you. Come here. You know,
Yeah.
there's so many opportunities for many different sizes of content to be assigned to members of faction warfare.
So not only immersion in that sense, but also immersion in, here's some new play styles that you may not be familiar with, and we're going to introduce you to those. So here's how you operate in a fleet and provide logi, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
we need to jam something, or we need to take down a structure. Here's how. So there's a lot of opportunities to create immersion, and it's pretty simple, really. Yeah, I don't think it's all that complicated to have, some more immersion. And we talked about this way back when, I don't remember. There was a roundtable or something at an event. But when the concept of AI-driven NPCs first came about, we've got ships undocking from stations that are NPCs and being controlled, and it's the idea of space becoming, alive. There's more stuff going on than you might be aware of, and I think that creates an immersion that's great, especially for
Yeah.
Eve, who's
Let's
not
get
really
some
had it.
things that are happening. Because right now,
Exactly, right,
the empires
right.
aren't doing anything outside of dev events.
Well, right. I think if you listen, I listened to Aura and I don't remember who. It was a couple CCP people on a podcast or a Twitch stream a few months ago talking about the new quadrant, the Foundation quadrant, and trying to
Mm.
wake up the empires, wake them up and get them involved. And for so long, it's Amar, Mimitar, Caldari. What was the difference really? And I think that,
How about they do something?
yeah, how about they do something? Yeah, exactly. How about they become part of our lives somehow? And then I also think there's an opportunity for people like myself or for pirate groups to participate in faction warfare. I didn't make that part of the roadmap because that's sort of more of a blue sky concept. But
I mean,
you know, for
the content for non-faction warfare people who are going to be pirates
right,
generates itself. The mere existence of people studiously getting on with faction warfare is the content for pirates.
it is. But I think you can imagine a world down the road where people could sign up for different factions that weren't empire based. Perhaps Sancha factions or I don't know drifter factions or whatever. But
Yeah, I mean, to
I
achieve what
don't
though?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. That's where it ends. It is very blue sky, obviously.
Yeah,
The point being, I think immersion is very important, and I think especially for players who need encouragement to try new things, to explore, to participate, and it'll also create a tapestry, not a tapestry, hopefully not a tapestry, a tapestry against which more players can participate in other ways, like we would.
I mean, the thing that I think would be fantastic about players being able to take part it solo or in a small group or even in a large group, just being able to take part in NPC warfare that's a lot more interesting and involved is, and I hate myself for using these two words together,
Uh-oh.
it's a nice safe space for them to start figuring this out without having to potentially risk picking, sometimes for some players who don't have any connections to any communities, picking at random a player group and rolling the dice and hoping that they're not going to be a bunch of assholes.
Right, right. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it has a lot of potential. I really do, and I think that that's something that you know, I think that it makes a lot of sense, and that CCP would probably be supportive of it. I think it's just one part, but the rest of faction warfare, is essentially just in need of updating. Really, when it comes right down to it, it just needs a little attention and a little love, and I think it's fine. The system can work. I think that everybody believes that. It just needs a little help, and this idea of NPC AI, I think, would be the driver for that sort of help.
Malkavian says farm warfare, no thanks. I mean, the whole point here,
Yeah,
Malkavian, is getting people to want to be out and about in space in gangs and fleets, and then the player versus player content essentially has now been generated, ready to rock.
right.
At no point do I want this game to be about farming whatsoever. But there need to be reasons for people to be in space so that emergent player interactions can happen.
Right. We have to do what we can to break the back of that idea, the ideation that allows farming and the laziness of it that has happened for the last decade.
You want farming, you can just go and mine in high sec.
Yeah,
Right.
have fun with that.
Yeah.
I did that for a while, and it's not fun.
Mining, the most popular subject on the show. Mining.
Mighty.
Would you like to talk about mining at all?
Yeah, let's talk about mining because I'm sure it's just as exciting as the action itself.
Well, I meant to tell you, Riker. Sorry, congratulations getting candidacy as well. Like I think we talked about this before. It is a bit, obviously it's a bit odd with you being CSM and host. You kind of get a bit mixed up and kind of forget that obviously you got that opportunity as well. So congratulations to you as well, mate.
Yeah, thanks. I was a little bit concerned about it, but yeah, everything turned out well.
Good deal. Good deal.
So, Riker, what do you want to change in the game?
Yeah.
I
That's a
want to
good
make it NPC ratting is less boring, and I can actually like have a reason to go and take out my super carrier to go and do PvP stuff. Because right now it's like, oh hey, I could risk this 40 billion ISK ship to make maybe 50 mil every tick.
Hold on.
It's
To
just it's
quickly
not.
just play devil's advocate here, should super carriers be ships that are viable for PvE?
I think yes, because if I'm putting my super carrier out there to go and make money with it, then that's another super carrier that could go and be dropped on and could die and cause a conflict.
Yes, but how often does that happen with the ones that even are out and about now? Because typically the only reason that they go out and about is because they already essentially have standing fleets and backup forces most of the time ready to save them, which itself reduces the desire of people to attempt to kill them in the first place. So it's kind of like a bit of a cold war, essentially.
Well, and the thing too is that like the reason why I think all that happens is that because people will only take them out when it's safe. What I want to do is I want there to be significant reward to make it to where people can actually go out. Like it would be worth it for people to go out of their safe zone and maybe go out and rat in their super carrier on a quote unquote off time. Because I can definitely tell you that these fleets are not up 24/7. There are definitely lulls when the fleet is not at its full strength, and during those times, a lot of super carrier pilots will just not undock. But a if you make a good enough reason for them to still undock during those lull periods and go and risk their ships, then I think that'll offset the whole, hey, there's these big massive fleets that are guarding
Yes,
them.
but the case with Rorquals that could make much larger amounts of money per hour was that people would essentially just cause power blocks to come into being to facilitate the far safer use of them rather than they constantly put them out at significant risk.
Oracles, though, also had a 7-minute invulnerability, which is more than enough time.
And supercarriers have several million EHP more than a Rorqual does as their survivability.
It's
Used to be a lot
it's
more.
significantly easier to kill a super carrier than it is a Rourke. Like
Except people use them deep within their empires where they will always see significant number of dreadnoughts staging ahead of time.
Yep.
which is why I still think that, hey, listen, there needs to be a good enough risk to where people will want to take their super carriers out, even though, like, hey, yes, there's a significant enemy force, but I still want to make this money.
Do you
And
do you
granted,
do you
there's
think
no
do you think that would happen? I mean, as a solo player or as a small gang player, or if you're going to risk a super carrier by yourself or with, a few friends, what level of ISK making would make that worthwhile without joining a large group or having Dread backup or a Sino in system with you? I'm
so
just curious.
so I think that, if the ISK is good enough, people will do it. We see
Yeah,
people, there are actually groups. One of them is actually messing with Pandemic Port right now that literally has super carriers staged deep within Horde space and are dropping on people. And that they're not making any money at all. They're just dropping people. And
right.
so while that is a much higher, skill gameplay, I think that people might start doing that to go and rat and make money. So the gameplay of using supers and caps and all that stuff in small gangs in enemy territory, like that exists. One of the more famous people was Elo Knight, who was very well known for staging, Titans deep within Impasse when Brave lived there. So that
Right.
gameplay does exist. It's an insanely high skill cap, and I, I just think that making it so that, hey, there are now NPC sites that you can do with that sort of part of gameplay, I think that'll just
I mean, you say gameplay, but you mean a super carrier. I mean, I think that a far better piece of game design for that takes something to the next level would be a lot more PvE content that requires a coherent fleet of ships to accomplish rather than, oh, I need a bigger site so that I can use my bigger ship in it. Because as soon as you start creating a bigger is simply better meta by giving super carriers some super carrier PvE to do that makes more money, then it's just a linear chart of bigger is better rather than getting more activity going is better.
Was
Right.
what was the suggestion? Not like I'm sure. I don't know. Was the suggestion not that to have NPC sites purely designed for capital ships? Though was that not a thing that went round for quite a while?
I mean, this is a difficult thing
It is.
for me to say, but quite frankly, I feel that when Rorquals were changed to be giga mining machines, essentially the thing for people to do to now make money became a ship that cost multiple billions. It raised the bar as to what money you could bring in. It raised the bar of the value of ship you're bringing. And what happens is when you do that, you people will also build safety around it to an even larger degree to be able to accomplish it. And what I'm getting at here is that if CCP keeps raising the stakes for farming, then all it does is create bigger power blocks to defend and enable that kind of activity every time.
The larger the activity becomes, the larger the safety net has to be.
Exactly.
It's why when we're out roaming and we bump into 10 rorquals in a belt, even in low sec, we tend to just ignore them because we know that the safety net for that is going to be too hard of a hill to climb for us.
Yeah, because what are you going to do? What are
Yeah.
you going to do? You're going to turn up there, and they're going
Right.
to use their invulnerability
Right.
to wait for the overwhelming force to come in to save them, while you are typically on grid with an Athanor that can occasionally point you and put massive newts on you and things like this.
Exactly.
The Rorquals that do die to roaming gangs are the people who didn't get the memo that if you do it as part of a smaller group without a backup fleet ready to come and ping and save you,
Right.
then this isn't going to be a financially viable thing for you to be doing.
I mean,
The problem isn't that as the stakes grow, so do the blocks. The problem is that as the stakes grow, the blocks grow exponentially.
yes. I mean, there are always going to be those people who, I mean, we live in a home system. It's well known. All you have to do is look at Zkill to find out where it is. And yet we still have occasionally someone bring an orca into a belt to mine on their own. And that orca dies pretty quickly. But you're always going to have those players. But to Ricker's point, though, I think that, to bring up the NPC AI thing. I mean, I hate to keep going back to that. I don't know why it's become a thing today, but here we are. So perhaps, more about what we were talking about, that to make those missions, those sites, more challenging to run isn't the same as making them bigger. Because I totally agree with Phanomite. The more linear this system becomes, the more you're just going to want 15 of your best friends coming to
It's
help
very
you.
shallow. It's
Yeah.
very shallow to make it
Yeah.
that linear. I think if we're looking for the next level in PvE, I think that it shouldn't be bigger sites for bigger ships. It should be content that requires that you bring a bunch of guys to accomplish in, let's say, maybe a capital and some subs, or just some sub-capital content. Why isn't there fleet PvE beyond incursions?
So there is actually also abyssals, and something I just want to go back and say, like, I'm all for more interesting PvP, like, or PvE. Like, that's part of the things that I want to advocate for. It's just I also think that with also having more interesting PvP, we should, or PvE, we should have PvE that requires bigger ships.
I don't know. I think that, as you make the ships more expensive that are required, all that happens is people just increase their safety net around it to match the money that they're going to be putting into it. And as the safety net increases, that's just block creation.
Well,
But
in
like, I feel like that was going to happen anyway. Like,
It's right that human nature is to band together, but CCP doesn't have to endlessly, constantly facilitate it themselves with the game mechanics.
well, we're looking at like at the moment it's the situation that we have to deal with. Though, like, obviously mistakes were made along the way, so blocks have been created and so on. So obviously, would you not try and make those changes to like
No.
because of the assets that are available to all these power blocks?
No. Just because these groups exist already doesn't mean that we need to endlessly keep on making things that require them. We can't, and CCP can't make these people break up, but they can remove and replace content that requires them.
Yeah, I think it's a mitigation thing, right? It's a mitigation issue. You don't want the game to continue to spiral out of control to larger and larger groups, where eventually it's just one side of the map against another side of the map. We want
And
to,
then,
yeah, then that's stagnation, right? Then we have stagnation, and that would be the end of it. I think what we want to do is try to mitigate the inevitable crawl and creep that happens, and then also try to identify those systems that are causing it. And, I think they're doing some of that with resource management. I think they're doing some of that with, moving things around a little bit. We're trying they're trying different things. It's obvious that they care and that they're trying to mitigate. I think that that's an important thing, or else this game just continues to creep until it's dead.
One thing I'd like to interject about is is to the reason why we have these big groups clumping up together. So I can say for a fact, after living in Nullsec pretty much my entire Eve career, was that one of the big contributors to all these groups forming was mutual safety because of these big sort of apex groups like PL, like Tissue, like Snuffbox, like a lot of newbies, like in order to not get their stuff blown up by these big apex groups, they came together to form even bigger groups. And so I think what a lot of
Or
people
they just joined the big groups.
Yeah, more likely joined.
I think it's a bit disingenuous to say that it sparked other people to form their own groups. I think it's a lot more realistic to say that they just joined the big groups.
Okay, yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, because like if I'm a small group, right? And I want to start to build up, but I know that groups like Snuff, Tissue, and all that stuff exist. And the moment I actually start to build up, they're just going to come in and beat me into the ground. Like I'm less likely to go and start my own group. I'm probably just going to go and join another, you know, just as strong group. So I think one of
I
the
want there to
reasons
be
why I know it,
opportunities for income that don't require that level of backup.
right?
So
And I think that
I want
that
there to
I
be
totally
reasonable
agree.
opportunities that you can achieve as a smaller group. I want the only remaining reason for being gigantic that should remain in this game is for the purpose of doing a massive PvP on somebody else. It shouldn't be that you require a massive, massive group just to earn a reasonable living.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Well,
I totally agree
Totally
with that,
agree.
Phil. Like one of the in yesterday's show, or not yesterday's, but in the last show we did, I was talking to White Orchid, who was talking about maybe making it possible for smaller groups to actually field Rorks. And to my point was, okay, well that's my idea was, okay, maybe not Rorks, but let's give them other ways to make income. Like let's take Abyssals for example. You can make a
Mhm.
ridiculous amount of money in Abyssals and you can do it in relative safely if you know what you're doing. I think more PvE like that should also be something that CCP should look into because it allows smaller groups or just one person to make a pretty significant amount of ISK if they know what
Well,
they're doing.
what we need to do at the same time is, while what CCP should do is, while they make income methods that don't require that you be part of a blob, they should also transition things that do require you be part of a blob to accomplish. And I don't mean things like building a Titan. I don't want
Right.
everybody everywhere to be able to solo build a Titan with no risk. I mean, we need to take a serious look at how the mechanics of mining work right now.
well, in terms of the industrial changes, like a solo building a Titan would take more than a few years now, is it not? Is what was the
No, I
estimated
just think
changes?
it's huge amounts of minerals and new sets of minerals but I mean, even us on the CSM, we don't know what a redistribution of minerals around the galaxy looks like yet. I fully expect, in my opinion, that the things like supers and stuff are going to be a lot more expensive, but none of us can say whether at what price these materials are going to be, or how many of them you mine per cycle in the future, or how many of them are available in whatever pocket of gas or asteroid there will be in the future. That's yet to be revealed. So by all means, we should be ready to point out the impossibility of things in the future. But until we know all of the details, we do not have, as players, any facts to stand upon to give a coherent argument for or against anything.
Right.
Obviously, mentioning null, we're going to have to do our obligatory mention of. I don't know if you lads have noticed, but there's a minor conflict going on in this game. I don't know, Riker, have you spotted this?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
But-
whereabouts?
I've
Well,
heard something about it.
I don't know, Riker. I
Totally
don't know.
not.
Have you spotted a minor conflict in this game? I don't know. I've heard of it. There's been a rumor mill suggesting it.
I think something's happening in Delve around the 1DQ1 constellation, but
Yeah.
mm,
Well, every time we go out on a filament roam, we end up in the same place. So I'm guessing that that's probably where it is.
Yeah.
So what's the current situation? Are side A currently sieging side 1 and waiting for side 1 to starve to death inside their castle because they can't get out into the fields to get their potatoes?
I think it's something like that.
I think
basically, I'll say it. But
This-
basically, what happened is that for the past month, Pappy has been doing pretty much nightly raids into 3D and 1DQ. There was a fight that actually took place last week where Pappy did another oopsie and got bombed. Basically, what had happened was they were trying to extract their fleets. They came out pretty positive, and then when they tried to push everyone through the gate, it decided to do some bombing shenanigans and wiped out the entire hack fleet or hack fleets.
it was.
I bet that
and,
if there was an
yeah.
action replay of that you could go and see, that would look very pretty.
I
Oh,
bet
yes.
it would.
It looks like the
Apparently it
fucking
was-
4th of July.
Did you actually attend that, Rico? Because it was US time zone, so I was very much asleep.
Oh no, I was busy doing other stuff. I forget what I was doing, but I was doing other stuff. Oh wait, I want to say I was playing Warhammer, Total War Warhammer 2, I think. But yeah, I was on comms. I definitely heard the very saltiness. One of my, I think someone said like, oh, it's dumb that they used, the fact that the servers died to go and kill us. And I just looked at them and it's like, okay, first off, we know how the servers are. And we know that if you try to do anything with a bunch of people, the servers can break. The fact that they bombed us, like, stop saying that, oh, it's BS that they did this to us, because honestly, Pappy would have done the same. Like,
come on, everybody is doing exactly the same thing to each other with any opportunity, and if they weren't taking every opportunity available to them, they're idiots.
There was, I think, like I woke up and I saw the numbers and the expression of disappointment and stuff, but you would have thought, from my perspective at least, I don't know if Riker shares the same opinion, but you would have thought lessons would have been learned in this case, but because I believe the number was around 500, and they tried to push hacks, about 500 people through the gate all at the same time. So, like in this case, what did you expect was going to happen?
and the thing is, like, yeah, they made a mistake, but like the fact that there were people, in the team speak that I was in, like, I literally had to say, guys, we know this is what happens. It happened. People are just angry that we didn't do it to them. Okay, let's just be happy that we didn't lose another over 100 Titans again. Like, congratulations, we lost a hack fleet. We literally, like, we can replace a hack fleet very easily. Yes, they're expensive, but they're not that expensive. Like, Horde still has not had to do, like, Horde is still in the positive in terms of money. It's fine. We can replace them. It'll be a new battle, tomorrow, because we literally go in every single day. And plus, like, from my knowledge, like, we had been coming out pretty even for the past week before that, and yesterday we just had a fight where we won. So I don't, well, no, not yesterday, Friday. Yeah, we had just had a fight where we did pretty well. So again, I don't understand the whole, like, we have to be mad that the server is broken. Goons took advantage of that, because it happens. Like, we would have done the same. Get a new ship. Let's go back out there and let's go kick some ass again.
We would have done the same, and we would have enjoyed it as well.
Yeah,
So
and
sure
that's
that
not to say that these fights haven't been fun. Like, these fights have been some of the most fun fights I've ever had. Like, which funny story. Well, not really funny story, but something that I had actually done is in Friday's fight, I was actually being jammed out by a goon Kitsune, and I was about to get super pissed, and I was about to say, "Oh, well, this is BS," but instead of like getting angry at it, I just said, "Wait a minute, I've got like 3 other characters that can fly a griffin. Why don't I just put them in a griffin, jump them in, and just start jamming out Logi? You know, don't get mad, get even. And so I did exactly that. And it was so much fun to jam out their Logi.
Nice.
There was also an event happened today, a vendetta, and was lost.
Yeah, saw that.
Do you Riker? Obviously, you've been a member of Horde as well. Do you know anything behind that at all?
Oh, I have no idea. I've been playing Prismarin 4 this morning, so.
Feel
Yeah,
free
some
to,
guy was out and about in his super carrier looking for some super carrier PvE. Bunch of guys dropped on him and he exploded.
Yeah, that's all there is to that. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
See,
Learn your
I
lesson,
totally-
kids.
I'll be interested in finding out what the thought process behind actually taking that, actually undocking that thing and getting yourself killed. And that
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, he probably had it for a
It's
really
something-
long time and was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to undock this thing. Who knows?
I mean, my thinking when I lost my Marshall to a Ortazar was like, hey, I haven't used this thing for blops. I can either go out and use it and possibly lose it, but actually get the chance to use it, or it can sit in my station collecting. It can sit in my hangar collecting dust. Like,
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm gonna choose to use it and lose it rather than just have it.
Whenever we run across a situation like that where somebody loses something very expensive, we tend to try to talk to them afterwards. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's usually a reason like that. It's, you know, I had this thing for a long time and I hardly ever use it, so I'm just going to go out and fly my Cremosa into belts and see what kind of thing I can get up to. So, or last week,
Everybody has a
Yeah.
rite of passage with
Exactly.
their first nicks where they go and try and
Right.
solo gank a lone guy in a subcap somewhere. And
Right.
occasionally it's the wrong moment and somebody's watching with a Sino and it's game over.
Yeah. Yeah, or last week we had a situation where a friend of mine decided to no longer play and gave away most of his hangar, and then also undocked his Ragnarok and let us all shoot it. So, you know, we got a Titan kill just because we were in the right place at the right time, and somebody
He's going to
wanted us.
regret that. He's going to regret that. People never really quit.
Yeah,
So the full and rich and detailed story from Odin's Call, and I quote: "Went to the system in a scepter, not expecting much. Saw his ass and went back, sent in dictors. Found him on an Astra, bumped him off while praying intensively. He tried hard to get out of smart bombing and manning the Astra, but we managed to deal with it, and he went poof.
nice.
And so, yeah, it's a very exciting report on the dying of the
Found a
bandit.
guy, bubbled him, bumped him, blew him up.
Yep.
I must say that's worthy of movie. That stuff.
Yeah.
So
What?
Yeah,
apparently
it's worthy of a
apart-
straight to TV movie.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
That's,
One day I fitted up a Nightmare. I undocked it to turn on the multis to see what the tank was on it, and just as I undocked, an obelisk undocked with me, and he warped to the gate on auto, landed 20 off, and I bumped him and took the next 35, 40 minutes to kill him. So sometimes it's just fortuitous that you're in the right place at the right time, right?
Has anybody here ever been solo killing somebody and it's taking so long that you get somebody to bring you spare ammo?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Typically
didn't
when
do
you're
that.
shooting something incredibly large in your incredibly small ship.
Yep. Yeah, once I had a Megathron tackled in my Rifter, and I had come back from a roam, so I only had like 300 rounds of ammo. So yeah, several trips of ammo for that solo kill.
A long time ago, I came across a Megathron in low sec at a planet somewhere, and I was shooting him with, I don't know, it was like, I was shooting him with like an incredibly small frig. I can't remember what it was.
Right.
But when he blew up, he wasn't fitted correctly, obviously.
Right.
When he blew up, I found that this poor new player had made an elemental mistake. I found in the wreckage 10,000 units of standard S.
Ooh.
This poor guy thought that lasers shot a crystal with every
Oh.
single shot.
Oh,
This poor little chap here.
that's great. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm just having a look at the candidate list for the CSM while you guys are chatting away.
Okay.
Oh, you can't say to us, "What do you think of this guy?" That's not fair.
No. I wasn't going down that.
I'll tell you what, I'm not a coward. Do it.
Yeah, why not?
We'll get turn into a gossip channel or something like that. No,
It's one of those things where it's like 3 words on these candidates, and then we
yeah,
have to use
no, we're not going down that road for sure. We're not the meta show.
the last one will startle you.
There was one. No, we're not going to that. Certainly, obviously, we've got. I mean, Riker has put together some notes here, and certainly some very important subjects have been raised. I don't know, Riker, you want to go ahead with the new changes that we made in terms of the cloaky camping, etc.
If by changes to cloaky camping you mean things that have not made it to final design yet.
So I think we should save the spiciest stuff for last. So let's do the nullification changes. All in all, basically they just made warp core stabilizers and nullification now an active module, except for shuttles. Shuttles are just have the passive nullification. So,
which is in my mind an admission that these things should always have just stayed as a bonus on the hull in the first place. But the thing that really, really ticks me off about this whole thing is that I don't know what the reasoning was in the mind to expand nullification to more ships. And quite frankly, I think it's an appalling misjudgment of how people actually play this game.
Yeah, I understand the fundamental reasons why they're making changes to certain things, right? So because they want to turn them from passive to active in not just in the sense of a module either, but also a sense of a player. So it's not just something you take for granted, you have to actively participate in. I get all that. And I also get the fact that they need to have numbers that they can tweak. You know, when it's built into a ship, there's nothing they can do about it. I get all that, but I'm with Phanomite there. I don't understand. And the list was much larger when it first was announced. I mean, heck, they had stealth bombers on there.
It's still too big. It's still too big, but yes, it was larger.
But I don't understand the need for the expansion of it either. I'm all for the fundamental aspect of how it's changed. Great. You know, the same with warp core stabs. That's great. We've got numbers now. We can do tiers. We can do faction warp core stabs. We can do officer. You know, who knows? That's fine. But the expansion of it, I just don't understand. And I'm glad to see that they took bombers off and, you know, some of the other nut things that were going on. And also, you know, it just seems a little bit not well thought through. You know, why doesn't the T3 nullification subsystem give you an extra high slot now? You know, it's just a lot of that. And of course, shuttles have to have it built in because they don't have slots. So, you know, it's just, I don't know. It feels a little half-hearted.
So here is, right, stand by, guys. Strap yourselves in.
All right.
Here we go, right.
Brace yourself.
Deep breath.
The thing that sparked all of this is the fact that people flying Ishtars could just fit some stabs and still be highly effective at PvE, while essentially just being able to warp away from large numbers of situations where you would get tackled by players. Somehow, this complaint, has expanded to become a named feature expansion of EVE Online. So, the initial problem, people are using Ishtars to do super good PvE, while also just being able to just leave whenever they feel about it. And somehow this has expanded, Ishtar's being able to escape this has expanded into an alleged solution to the problem for an expansion that is named The Great Escape, which increases the escape options of pilots across even more ships. Now, why on earth is the sole damage penalty to drones on this? Because now this is essentially a buff to PvE, because now +2 warp core points only takes up 1 slot where it used to take up 2, and this
Right.
has been essentially given for free to all PvE ships that use weapon systems other than drones. So get ready for the era of PvP with missiles, because guess what? They only need 1 slot now to choose to leave.
Yep.
What's funny about that?
You feel better now?
Oh, that
So
was only
what's
half the rant. I'm taking a breath here. Carry on.
So what's funny about this whole thing is that, like, for my ships, I don't even fit warp core stabs. I have an alt that sits like 3 jumps out, and the minute anything jumps into that system, I'm immediately recalling drones and warping back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you.
So, all right, here's part of the deal as well, right? Why is people are finding it too easy to get away? Why has this turned into a named big release of things that nobody asked for? And perhaps here's something that's possibly even the most offensive part of this is because a +2 warp core stabilization now only takes 1 slot, stabs are now unironically viable in PvP.
Hmm.
That's really stupid.
Isn't it? Because these things carry no penalties to any weapon systems other than drones.
So basically, what you're saying is, if I'm solo PvPing and I immediately and there are a few people that come in and I feel like, oh, I'm gonna die, I can just say, well, nope, I'm gone.
Well, I mean, there's still penalties to scan resolution. There's still penalties to range. There's still
Yeah,
penalties. Yeah.
to lock range. But
Right.
if you're flying a brawling ship, then you crack on, fit a stab mate. It's you're using 1 slot now as a get out of jail free card. With 1 single slot, you can warp away from being scrammed. And don't anybody in the chat come at me saying, but faction scrams. We're not all spending 100 million ISK plus on the scrams on our PvP ships just for the luxury of holding a target down.
Right. Uh, well, I especially get that one a lot, and I have for 10 years because, people will say, well, it doesn't matter how many worm curse stabs they have on the low slots because, you just use faction scrams on it. And well, maybe I don't want to put a $35 million
How Whoa, way more than
module
that.
on my
What
choice.
quite frankly, what an offensive thing to be said to people who just want to do something simple and common in EVE Online, which is tackling a ship.
Right. Yep. Well, content and, PvP, it's PvP, right?
And this is a PvP game.
Oh, no way. Is it? And yes, I do know all of that about the PvP part. And yeah, there's a little bit of that too. And I think that, what's funny for me is after, advocating for similar types of changes for so long, to watch them actually become reality and then see the response from the community and how many people are just throwing up their hands and going, I'm quitting, or this has ruined a play style of mine, or this is something I can't overcome. And I think that it's quite ridiculous in my opinion.
And guess
Um,
what? With this one here, it's people who PvP who are throwing their hands up and saying they're going to quit. When this was the problem that this was that sparked this was people are avoiding PvP, and
right.
they've done it in a way that essentially buffs using stabs on both PvP and PvE ships. I mean, quite frankly, if the problem, if the problem was that people can just warp out in their Ishtars, then here is the solution to the entire problem. Make stabs have huge penalties to damage from all weapon types, and that would be all that needed to change completely. But of course, here's the problem. That's not a big release that you can spend a huge amount of dev time of and name with
Right.
a big picture and a tagline.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. You're
And
not
do you know
getting
what?
it.
The most offensive thing about this is that there are a myriad of things that the players are collectively calling out for, desperate for major changes to lots of areas of the game. But instead, we get releases like this.
Yeah. Yep. I 100% agree with that.
think we need to get you some whiskey, Phanomite. That was
Grief, yeah.
Yeah.
You got a wee bit carried away there.
Well, what we really need is for you guys to vote me in so I can keep on bringing these problems up to CCP, even if they are largely deaf to this. It needs people like me, quite frankly, who will be there to point this kind of thing out to CCP and not let it go.
Well, I don't know. What...
Likewise, by the way. But yeah, I'm not going to rant on it. But yes, agreed.
Don't forget, Rixx here has been campaigning about stabs for more than several years.
Mhm. Yeah, a long time. Well over 10 years, actually. But yes. Lots of conversations. None of which really. We had this conversation. I had this conversation with Master Plan back in 2018 or 17 or whenever it was. It doesn't matter. But complex issues of surrounding a module or a part of the game that has been abandoned. Like we were talking about faction warfare earlier, and Phanomite mentions other areas of the game that players are desperate to have attention brought to, and these are the types of things that seem, at least on the surface, to be neglected and abandoned, and it really has to stop. We have to stop adding things to the game that we have no intention of following up on.
And they have to stop developing things that nobody asked for, that turn up dead on arrival, and that make the game worse. When we could list for hours things that we would really love them to work on, which would be of huge benefit to the whole game.
Absolutely.
Talking about a change that no one asked for. The mobile observatories.
Now, I think it was a bit disingenuous, to be honest, to call that a change nobody asked for.
Well, yeah,
I mean, the core thing it's attempting to address is what's known as AFK cloaking.
Yeah.
I was being rather selfish with my commentary there. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the cloaky campaign in terms of the. I've seen a lot of comments about it. Obviously, there was very much conflicting opinions. Sorry, go ahead, Rick.
Oh, I was about to say, so real quick, can someone who knows about them actually explain how that whole works? Because all I know about the whole cloaky camping stuff is that you put down mobile observatories and they do a thing.
You put it down, it takes some time to anchor. The moment it anchors, it sends out a ping which has I believe it's a 40% chance to decloak any ship in the game, and it's every, I think, 10 minutes that it repings, and you can anchor up to 10 of them in a system at a time. Can't remember off the top of my head how long these things last for before they automatically blow up, but they do have an expiry.
They do. It's not long. I don't remember exactly, 30 minutes or something. But there is a way, and in which you can anchor these time anchors. So you anchor one and then you wait and anchor another one and then wait and anchor another one, so that the pings going out are pretty much continuous.
And when you first activate your cloak, when you turn your cloak on, you have a grace period where you can't be decloaked by a ping, which I believe is different between different metas of cloaks.
I believe so, yes. It's about 10, 15 minutes, yeah. It's crazy. So, no, FK camping, cloaking, gone. But you have to use them, of course, and I don't know. They're easily destructible. That's one thing, I guess, but
I mean, I guess screw you to people who are setting up bombing runs.
Yeah, no, that actually does sound like it might be a bit abusive towards like people who do blobs. That whole like staging cloaky supers in enemy territory, like that's
which is niche, but it is a gameplay style that requires a lot of personal risk nonetheless.
Well, I believe it was Bomber's Bar Nova Valentius who said, basically CCP's just completely destroyed their play style. So there is.
No. I would disagree on that. In terms, I have a lot to say about this, so bear with me on this. In terms of, obviously, to begin with, the whole idea of cloaky camping, originally the design, the idea behind it was to combat local,
Right.
because the original, because people were able to manipulate local to the point where I believe there is a third party tool that will be able to trigger whenever you're 5 systems out. So essentially, if you're 5 systems out, you will be notified that someone is in the area. So and obviously you can take whatever action you want to do, whether it be dock up or whatever. So cloaky camping was designed to combat that, and capitalize on anyone that's perhaps a little bit careless with whatever super carrier ratting they've been doing at the time. However, there has been, like, a lot of people have witnessed situations where you're being camped, where it's not being used for this purpose. It's been used for a very different reason, generally to make someone's life entirely miserable. Which I believe, in my opinion, again, obviously a lot of people will share a very different opinion towards this. I believe that's where the kind of the complaints had kind of stemmed from. Hence the reason I was a great fan of Blackout, because that eliminated, for some reason I can't fucking speak English now. That like totally eliminated anyone's ability to capitalize on whatever local can give them. Because again, I have very little clue about software, but I understand a lot of people were able to scrape a lot of information from local chat.
You point a screen capture software at the list of local, and somebody appears, and it just transcribes their name into a channel. Easy.
So, like, from my limited understanding of cloaky camping, it would still be possible, but it would require
It's not going to be AFK anymore. It's going to be you're there, and when you get decloaked, you just click cloak again.
Yeah, but on the other hand, there is an element of there will still be an element of kind of ability there, because there are going to be a certain percentage of people that own nice things and are very careless with them, and that is going to be an option. But still, it has eliminated something that was able to combat what nullseekers have available to them. Does that make sense?
I mean, the elephant in the room here is how PvE works. The elephant in the room here is that really PvE and the way people perform PvE should have been, which I know is a way bigger job, but it's that needs a complete revolution rather than we need to make it so that people can't wait.
Well, bring back Blackout. That's what I say. That's just
the problem with Blackout is that vast swathes of the prey simply took their ball home and didn't come out.
Yep.
Yeah, that was.
And again, that Blackout is a heavy-handed approach to a more nuanced problem with how PvE works.
Phantomite, you're going to make fucking blood vessel in my head bust, honestly.
We can say Blackout was awesome all we want, but quite frankly, how proud can you be of killing a bunch of Ishtars and then all the Ishtars just go home and don't come out?
Oh, no. The Ishtars that died were a minority in comparison to what we're able to kill. But again, as you said, everyone get very upset because they didn't have their own way, and everyone docked up. And
well, no, it's a matter of risk again. The risk goes up to a certain level, and people just won't do it anymore.
Yeah, they just don't participate in AFK AFK dock, which is the worst thing that can happen to this game.
Yeah, no, during Blackout, I pretty much just said, all right, well, I guess I'm going to just like I was one of those people who didn't make a big deal about it on Reddit. I just started up subbing accounts and just left for a while. Like that's
Because
that's
the
what I did.
risk made it not worth it to you, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, oh well, I enjoy PvE, and this is like there's no reason for me to do anything anymore. So
I've been thinking about this for a long time now, and so far one of several concepts that I've been considering is that the location where the risk is needs to be moved. So in my mind, a better alternative, not the perfect one, but a better alternative, would be for, instead of anomalies being a place where you just go and kill a bunch of rats, it should be that every single anomaly you go to, and stick with me through this, has an acceleration gate, meaning that inside you have a higher level of safety, but that to get your reward, you have to follow a escalation of these anomalies through several chains of systems before you get your reward, which is where the risk gets shifted to the gates rather than in the anomaly itself, meaning that this reduces the impact of the perceived impact of AFK cloaky camping, and introduces a alternative, busier location of risk. So you remove the risk in the site and you add it on the travel, which is now mandatory.
No. Don't think you can get away with this, Phanomite. We'll go.
Go on, let's fight. Let's do this. Come on, what do you want to do?
Go back to my original conversation in terms of blackout. So, put yourself in the position of a ratter. If someone say Riker, you were out and doing your thing in terms of ratting or whatever, okay, and you don't have local. What alternative way?
Hold on, let me just get into the headspace of this. Let me just open a rerun of The Office on the other screen. Here we go. Right. Okay. Yeah. Go on.
So put yourself in a position so you don't have local, which is which is currently any ratter's source of intel. What would be the alternative choice then?
What, to the source of intel, to keeping safe?
I would either tune into a Twitch stream that my alliance is probably running of all the gates in the area, or I would use my army of alts to go in and scan systems and have cloaky eyes on the gate. And then I would probably fit my ship up with various warp core stabs and nullification.
Right.
No, Dex,
Nice.
Dex, I'll answer this. There isn't.
No. Cloaky eyes are not really an option anymore because you have mobile observatories.
Yeah, but I'm at the computer, so I can just keep hitting reclose.
But my argument is that blackout and mobile observatories are band-aids on a bad system.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, it's I'm not for or against. These cause problems and alleviate problems at the same time, meaning that we're just pushing these problems around like dung beetles, essentially, rather than actually revamping the system to have no risk in some areas and high risk in some others.
Right.
But that's the thing that I was pushing towards, was that you have things and you have tools available to you that will contribute. The whole point of being in nullsec is that you have no one to protect you. Your job is to protect yourself, and you have tools available to you. The whole idea behind the game is for null to be a highly dangerous situation, or a highly dangerous environment. So having local completely fucking eliminates that idea. Like you hear or you
It
read
certainly
things,
does, but local is only
no. There's no but involved here, fam. It completely eliminates that idea because someone drops in local, pop up in local chat, gone. Your target is gone completely, and then
right.
that's end of story. You get back to your wormhole, or you get back to your dock.
So do you want the ratter to? Do you want the site to always tackle the ratter until the site's completed, or something?
No. What I'm saying is that in game there are still tools available to protect yourself, but this requires you to invest time in actively in interacting with the game, whether it be D-scan or anything like that, or again, having an alt that would sit at the gate or whatever, it is your job to protect yourself. Ultimately, because the game has put itself in the situation, whether we're blaming CCP for this, but they've Ratters. I'm not going to put a label on it or anything like that, but like there is a certain person have got their own way for such an extensive amount of time. Whenever the blackout period arrived, a lot of people quit, but there was so many more people subscribed because it was such a dramatic change in gameplay.
I mean, something that we can't know is how that would have played out in the long run, because CCP only did it for a set, notably short period of time.
Right.
That was the frustrating aspect of it, was that on one hand it did mix it up and it made the game so much more interesting because
mixed it up, but when it settles, it's not mixed up anymore, is it? It's just different.
It's the new normal.
Yeah.
It's the new normal. Hey, gentlemen, I'm sorry. I apologize. We're running a little later than I thought, and I'm getting my boss tells me that I'm done. So I do have to.
Rixx, ask people to vote for you, because I'm going to be doing that at the end. So you need to get yours in.
Yeah. No, I think thank you for having me on, and I really sincerely appreciate the opportunity. Anytime, actually. These are great conversations to have. I am running for CSM, and I would appreciate your vote for Rixx Javix. LoSec needs attention, and I agree. I'm sure Phanomite would agree with that. We see eye to eye on most subjects, I believe, and I think that we would make a good team for doing what we have to do. Obviously, I've worked with CCP for the last 12 years on special projects here and there. I understand how those internal things work, and I'm looking forward to doing a good job of representing the player base. Primarily, my area of advocacy will be faction warfare and LoSec, of course, but that's what I am known for. So there you go. There's my pitch. I would appreciate finishing out this conversation, but unfortunately, I do have to go.
No, absolutely, and you very much. I think
it was actually.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Always good talking, Eve. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's great having you, Rixx. Thank you so much for coming. And with that, we actually are starting to get towards the end of the show. I guess that pretty much covers all our topics. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about?
I want to talk about, just very briefly, why I think it's important that I'm here for a second year. And that's that perhaps what it takes for significant change in EVE is longer than 1 year of constantly leaning on CCP about the same things. I don't want them to be able to breathe and go, oh, okay, we waited him out. We just waited, and now he's not here. I want to be here. I don't want to be going away. I don't want to let them off the hook. I want them to address the things that I need them to address for the good of the game.
I can pay up to £20 if you support Blackout for me.
If I support the blackout. Unfortunately, the blackout is far too complex a subject for me to come down on one side or the other of, Dex.
£20 in a Happy Meal.
Oh, damn. What's the current toy with the Happy Meal?
I have no idea.
Let me have a look. Let me have a look. It was a Jurassic World one not too long ago. I wonder if it's the same. Hold on. I'm just looking it up.
You want them to address you whining, not the betterment of the game. It's very constructive of you, Mad Hatter.
Oh, damn. It's currently a 25th anniversary celebration of Pokemon set of rewards in the Happy Meal.
Bit of a letdown, that, isn't it?
Oh, it's got Pokemon trading cards.
Oh, well.
For the Happy Meal, yeah, go on then. Let's have it. Let's support Blackout.
For real though, mate, it's feel free. Go ahead and obviously continue what you were saying about your and talking with CCP more than 1 year.
That's it, basically. I don't want to let them off the hook. This has to happen. these things have to happen. The game has to be developed for the features that the people are genuinely concerned about rather than the ones that they're not.
I guess all I'll say is that let's make PvE. I keep saying PvP. Let's make PvE more interesting. Let's change it from something that's just a means to an end and actually content that people can look forward to.
Because what this game definitely doesn't need is more sitting there letting your ship do stuff while you just do something else. There needs to be an actual game here.
I don't like. I don't want to have to get a Netflix subscription and something to watch whenever I go out and rat. Like I want there to actually be something fun and enjoyable that I can look forward to when I rat.
You want it to be engaging.
Well, I would, anyone in chat, by the way, people are asking a few questions. Feel free to, we have 2 CSM members here, or candidates, sorry. Feel free to go to ask, and I encourage you to be constructive in your questioning, but feel free to go ahead and ask any questions, and obviously, Riker, obviously you're welcome to say why should people in chat vote for you.
Oh, well, I've been playing this game since 2012, and I've created a whole lot of memories in this game, and I want to, help. I want to help the game and help better the game so that other people can have, these memories that they'll remember for the rest of their lives, just like I have. And I think that, with a focus and with my advocacy for more engaging PvE and also community engagement, because let's be real, the community is like a a key element to this game. I think that through that advocacy, we can make the game a whole lot better. Also, I believe that my experience in game QA can actually like really benefit the CSM, and that's why I'm running. I swear the answer I have written out is way more concise, but you kind of caught me off guard there, so I had to try to remember it.
That was the whole idea, mate. It's just to catch you off guard, see what you kind of had in mind. But the Pink Fat Rabbit asks, should we have limits for structures per system?
Yes, we should, but at the same time, we also need to have a suitable ability to lay siege to those structures. Right now, you need to have your own structures on grid to realistically be able to assault a Keepstar and often to be also able to assault even a Fortizar. And CCP, for some reason, designed the defenses on citadels to deter the use of dreadnoughts as structure bashing ships, which has been one of their main purposes and reasons for existence in the first place.
Riker, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I just look at that and say, all right, well then nullsec alliances are just going to fill up all their space in the space around them with structures and just max it out. Like that's
Yeah,
immediately.
but there's going to be fewer of them because there's limitations on the numbers.
Yeah, there's going to be fewer of them, but it's then also going to be harder to siege them because again, you need a structure on grid in order to siege like the very big ones. So basically, what I'm saying is that me and Phanomite pretty much share the exact same line of thinking in that way.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Because like, I totally agree. Like when I think dreadnought, I think, all right, I'm gonna go shoot a structure with it. But structures eat dreadnoughts alive, so it's like
Even
okay,
Astra
well,
houses can eat dreadnoughts.
it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Stalker Matty ask, what's your opinion on null blocks in relation to the Keepstar and Perimeter?
The
I mean,
Keepstar in Perimeter wouldn't exist if there weren't so few extremely large groups that had interest in it. Aside from that, the most obvious thing is that CCP should never have allowed structures the size of Keepstars to be anchorable in high sec. The reason that they don't fight over it isn't just the money. The reason they don't fight over it is because it's high sec. It just turns into endless, massive Ferox fights over and over and over and over and over again with far less responsive systems, because it's high sec, which has a lot more going on in the background for calculating aggression.
And for anyone not in the know, the Keepstar and Perimeter is shared by all the income that generates is shared between all three of the Goons, Horde, and Test. All get a percentage of the income that the Keepstar generates.
They have essentially just found the optimum way to play the game that CCP has presented to us.
So
And
one thing I will
unfortunately, the
say,
optimum game they've presented us with is terrible in that regards.
one thing I will say is that with regards to structures in perimeter, I mean, someone was going to do it. The whole idea that they allowed a keep star to be anchored in high sec. I totally agree with Phanomite. Like, it's the amount you need that you would need to see to the perimeter keep star. Like, no small group is realistically going to do that. Like, it's going to be dominated, by the bigger null sec groups. If it was a smaller structure, it would possibly make it to where, okay, well, a smaller group can realistically siege it. Because it used to be where before perimeter, it was ruled by Pandemic Horde, and then before Pandemic Horde, it was ruled by I Choose You, which was in fierce competition with Yeti Financial or Eve Mogul. Yeah, Eve Mogul. Like, those two were the two people that were constantly hiring mercenaries to go and fight each other so that they could, corner the market. Like, that was interesting. Now we just have this big monolithic keep star that the minute someone challenges it, you've got all of nullsec that's just coming in and destroying everything
The
that you
problem
ever hope
is,
against it.
yeah, the problem is that the groups in nullsec are so large that that means that there are so few of those super large groups that there can't be any meaningful conflict, even if the actual on-grid fighting wasn't terrible, which it is.
And yeah, Billy was saying in chat that someone did corner the market before us, and the person actually cornering the perimeter market with a Fortizar was actually Pandemic Horde, and then Test
Sure.
came in and took all that stuff like that. It was more interesting when you had multiple null groups that weren't in this tight alliance together
Mhm.
that were fighting for it.
Which
And again, I don't blame
these.
these people for having the TTT be off the table for combat, because nobody wants to fight over it because the combat is so bad over it. So I don't blame them for teaming up on it.
Oh yeah, like they're just playing the game in the most optimal way. Like, I'm not gonna bash my own alliance or Test for doing something in the most optimal way, because at the end of the day, I'm bashing them because I didn't do it first. Like, that's just what it comes down to.
It was this is just to answer your question. Yeah, no, we're not. We don't spend our time bashing nullsec. It's just someone asked the question about the perimeter Keepstar. So yeah, that hence the reason it sounds like we're just abusing all the nullsec alliances. But yeah, as the guys were saying, it's just an idea that just playing in an optimal way. A question, so CSM should push for small null block.
The game, if it was viable for there to be many more groups with fewer numbers, then there would be far more constant action that doesn't take a year or 2 years for a war. Let's see how Delve plays out. And there would be far more stories going on and interplaying with each other, and it would be far more accessible to people, and it would have far more opportunities for people to make names for themselves.
I totally agree with Phanomite. It's funny. There's very little that I actually disagree with Phanomite on. Wow.
It's like you're just one person. If not via war, how would you get rid of large structures in high sec space?
By CCP saying, okay, we're no longer allowing any new ones to be anchored, and after a year, the ones that are still here will have disintegrated. Done.
Do you see CCP having the bravery to do that?
Honestly, 50-50. They had the balls to make structures go abandoned and make people lose their entire lifetimes of items because they've dared to leave the game for a year. So, who knows what they'd do.
They did give them notification. I'll give them credit for that. They did actually email
Okay,
them
so
saying, listen,
that's assuming that people have signed up for EVE Online on email accounts that they monitor and don't just use for registering games to.
perhaps.
Anyway, is our show's about to come to an end here. We've talked about some stuff that we've talked about a variety of topics. Is there anything else that people are passionate about?
Yeah,
If
people. Janny keeps on asking me how I feel about inertial stabilizers on a Zealot, and you know what? I'll tell you, that thing turns on a penny, mate. It's amazing.
but
And with that, that about wraps up our show. I want to thank all the guests for coming this week. Rixx, Phanomite, even though Rixx isn't here, you guys were amazing. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
If you're watching the show and you like what you see, please hit that follow button. New and Post streams EVE-related shows throughout the week, including Trash Talk Tuesday on Tuesday, Lasers and Lace on Thursday, and Between Two Keepstars every other Sunday. Always remember to bubble wrap your Keepstars, and we'll see you next time.